Today, we are unpacking one of the biggest shifts in marketing. For years, CMOs were seen as brand custodians, but not anymore. A modern CMO is a system builder creating frameworks of visibility, trust, and adoption that enables a brand to grow year after year. Hi, I'm Rachita Sharma from FTA Global, and you're watching another engaging episode of Brand Perspective series at Marketing Stack 2025. Joining me today is Rasika Prashant, Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder of Tata Consumer Soulful. Rasika has helped transform Soulful from a millet-based startup to a national FMCG product that is now in more than 400,000 stores in India. What makes her story relevant today is how she has firsthand transcend, from the role of a founder to a CMO, and how she has actually built those systems and scaled that through her years of experience. Rasika, welcome to the podcast. Really looking forward to have this engaging conversation about how CMO is going to be the next system builder for the ecosystem.
Hi, Rachita. Thank you so much for having me over. Looking forward to an engaging conversation.
Thank you. So, Rasika, we'll start at the beginning. So, when you look back at your journey, was there a specific moment where you felt you were not just, building some marketing activities, but you were actually creating system, you were building something big?
So I'll have a very funny anecdote to share with you, right? And I think it was it's that penny drop moment. So I remember that we got funded in 2018. That was our first round of funding. Till then, I was the only marketing member of the marketing team. So it was just like be all and end all was me, right? And when we got funded, we had to build a team out there.
Right.
And then we had a couple of brand managers who came to interview. And then we hired this guy. And now, to somebody like that, you are selling an aspiration because you're hiring tier one school kids. So we were three of us. It was me, my other co-founder, who's currently the CEO, and my third co-founder, who was the COO. So this guy joins me, and he comes first day at work, and then he comes and sits in my cabin, and he talks to me, and he's like, Rasika, like my email ID. I'm like, just give me a second. I'm just going to call up the IT department. I pick up the phone. I call my co-founder, who's sitting in the third cabin, who's actually head sales. And I tell him, yeah, so is that the IT department? Can we please have the email ID set up? So from there, he says, yes, ma'am, the laptop and email is set up. And that's when you realize that, how you need to transform yourself, because people are your biggest assets. And those people who you entrust your brand into, they're huge assets for you. If you don't give them the confidence, if you don't give them the bigness of the brand, they are not going to be able to dream big like you want to. So I think that's when I realized that it doesn't matter what size you are. It doesn't matter what you're out there to get. It doesn't matter what your revenues are. But that kind of vision that, when you entail or you entrust it to people, it just gives you a larger story. Cut to very recently, like now we're a part of TCPL.
Right.
That same boy who like then, of course, left us a couple of years later, had interviewed with one of our other business units under the Tata aegis, and is now joining as director marketing over there. So it just goes to tell you that dream that you sold, and today he's come back, right? And he still believes that for him, it doesn't feel like Soulful became a big story in the last 5 years. For him, Soulful was always that big story. So you are not only transforming brands, you're transforming something bigger.
Right. And I think that's a really fab example of how your role has also turned from a, brand custodian to a brand creator. And your role must have also evolved.
Yeah.
With, I think that was the foundation when you started. So how much has it changed? But since now you have much more established, you belong to the Tata group. So how has that evolution happened?
So I think, to answer your question on the brand custodian to the brand creator, see, a brand custodian is somebody who takes a brand and then they end up, they market that particular brand.
Right.
This has nothing to do with the evolution, but this is how at Soulful each of us behave. And that's why even though I'm the CMO, I also lead all the innovation and product development. So the entire product development comes under me. So from the product insight to the consumer need gap, to why we are solving for the product, to what is the market scenario, to what is the category size, how are we going to go in, to the GTM, all of this starts even before we conceptualize a product prototype. And the marketing spiel, or what that entire journey is going to be, comes from the day, because we are a product company. At the soul of it, we create products which impact consumers and make a difference to them and give them something which is better for you. So when you are a part of that creation of that product, you're not just the custodian of that particular category or that brand. You are actually creating the brand, you're building it out, and then you're putting it out there. So when you market it, there's that much more attachment, there's much more depth with which you market. More importantly, there's consistency from the story of building the product to all the way till you see it scale across various channels. So that's where the difference comes in. As far as how did we transition that, it's very interesting, right? So as Soulful as a startup, we used to sell a lot outside. And because we used to sell to retailers, we used to sell to channel partners, we used to sell to like hotels. So we used to sell to different people. When we became a part of a large conglomerate like Tata Consumer, which is, like we always say, it's the agility of a startup and the might of Tata, we started selling inside. So we had that same sales guy who today sold Soulful, who sold Sampan, who sold Tata Tea, who now sells Capital Foods. You had to sell to get his mind space, to get his mind share. So just by selling a brand spiel wasn't enough. It's about telling him that story which gives him a right to win, which he remembers, and how do you be top of mind for him. So that's the big transition in the journey.
Right. And I feel if you will just see from a marketer's point of view, you'll see these when you are defining the process even before the product launch. You see the visibility, you see the distribution, you see attribution, adoption, and also trust, right? But when you are actually bringing the product into the market as a founder, right, you have to think about these not as just metrics but as systems that you need to design, right? Because there is a certain objective that you want to achieve. So how was the process of the same? Like, how did you design these systems across?
So see, it's very simple. So again, right, I'll take it in two parts. Point number one is, why are systems more essential than looking at matrices?
Right.
Because matrices are something which are a very short-sighted. You're just making yourself feel validated. See, we are not people. Even not only as an entrepreneur, I feel even as a brand custodian, right? Even as a
Right.
brand manager or a senior brand manager, when you look at just matrices, you're just going from one campaign to another. And somewhere in a cocoon, you're fooling yourself that these look good. Your benchmarks could be somebody, it all depends. I mean, your benchmarks could be very low. You're here to disrupt.
Right.
And when you're there to disrupt with a differentiated mode, your benchmark is the sky. And
Right.
hence, only systems can make you feel very comfortable that each aspect that you've done,
Right.
the KPIs that it will deliver, those are given. And when your systems are thorough, like as simple as that, for example, whenever we design products, for example, our kids portfolio, our kids overarching range is called Ragi Bites. And Ragi Bites is the format. So if you look at Soulful as a brand, we always were very, very clear. It's Tata Soulful, erstwhile Soulful. Under Soulful, we didn't create multiple brands. We created multiple formats. The architecture looked the same. So the system was very simple. When the first pack was designed for the kids portfolio or the adult portfolio, there was a clear architecture that there'll be a top band and the bottom will be one color. The packaging will be very, very clean. We will have a mascot, which is our Cruncha Mancha, in all our kids' packaging and any kids' communication. As far as the young adult is concerned, it will be a big appetizing bowl.
Right.
We were very clear, we'll have only one or two benefits. It'll be very, very clean. So these are architectures which were defined much in advance. As a result, when you see, for example, somebody could talk about muesli or somebody could talk about granola, but irrespective of which packet gets distributed in the market, when the consumer sees it, it finally waterfalls on the larger brand. So when we look at even a campaign stack for the year, we won't look at a particular category needs to be on air like for 52 weeks in a year. We always put our stack up by saying that I have to make sure that Tata Soulful as a brand has to have 52 weeks on air, which makes your money work harder, builds a lot more efficiency, and everything goes back in layers to Tata Soulful as a brand. So the money that you're making, you're putting in, it works so much more harder. It optimizes every penny that you spend, because the frequency is not about that campaign. The frequency is about all the campaigns that you've run before. So to the consumer, the brand really starts feeling much larger than what it is. So
Right.
rather than fragmenting, you consolidate and then you put your efforts in. So over a period of time, the barrier to entry is so strong that nobody can enter, because you have not built multiple portfolios, you have built product concepts, and you built one brand, Tata Soulful. So I think
Right.
that's the system. So
Right.
the system comes in at every stage, and
Hmm.
if you're just so thorough with it, then you become. So today Soulful is the largest packaged millet processing brand in the world. Now,
Okay.
that wouldn't happen if it was not the technology which was differentiated for so many years. Honestly speaking, it sounds very big, right? It was just those baby steps which would all stack up to that one ecosystem. That's it.
Right. I think from a marketing playbook perspective, and especially in the FMCG category, a lot of these decisions are happening offline, and through these kirana stores, through QCOM, right? The kind of systems that you mentioned that you aim to architect before even the launch. Suppose an influence has been created digitally. How do you make sure that it's also connecting offline? How do you measure that first? How you make sure that it connects, and plus, if the feasibility of the same.
So, again, same thing. So, suppose if a consumer gets exposed to a product online, let's assume through QCOM. I
Right.
think what you're trying to ask me is, how do I ensure that I leverage this irrespective of which channel that we go to?
Right.
Very simple. So we customize our packs and SKUs depending on what is the saliency of that particular platform. So if you look at QCOM, they're small packs. If you look at eCom, they're medium size packs.
Hmm.
If you look at modern trade, they're large size packs. If you look at GT, there'll be a 5 rupee, 10 rupee.
Hmm.
Now, having said that, it from a consumer point of view, wherever you see that pack, it will look absolutely the same. And that's the kind of similarity or coherence that we try to build. Point number
Right.
one. Point number two, when we reach out to a consumer, we never talk about ourselves as multiple channels. For us, each of us cater to an omni-channel approach.
Right.
The customer should get the product wherever they go. It should be
Right.
accessible, it should be affordable, and it should be the quality of the product should remain the same.
Right.
Consumer sits in the center of all this. So the moment you make the consumer sit in the center and then you cater to it around that consumer, it works. I'll give
Right.
you a simple example. We have a pack called a combo pack, okay? And that combo pack has 6 little packs with different flavors. Now, that particular combo pack we sell through modern trade,
Hmm.
which is your Reliance, DMart of the world. What we did was we put a small little card into it, okay?
Okay.
And it's called a Miscall card. So we said
Okay.
that if you give us a Miscall, it's as simple as that. If you give us a Miscall, then you will stand a chance to win a tablet once a month.
Hmm.
Now, honestly speaking, it sounds like such an effort, right? We get almost 40% redemption. So we know that who that consumer is, who has bought that pack of ours, and we are able to track those consumers. We
Hmm.
get to know how many households those pack goes into, and then we also sell to those consumers because we target them through D2C. So what we do is, now that pack has been sold in modern trade. We
Right.
have a D2C platform for a brand like us, which is better for you, mass premium. D2C is not the largest channel. Why is it not the largest channel? Because our AOVs are around what? 499, 500. D2C, you need a larger AOV. However, because we have that consumer data, we don't bother that consumer. We are not intrusive. But what we do is we have the data, we target that consumer, we
Right.
send ads to that consumer, we make them more aware. And we also do things like we call up those consumers, we have a CRM team. And on, so what do kids do on their birthdays? Now, somebody who's bought that pack has to have a child in their house. What does a child do on their birthday? They give chocolates to their friends. So we call them up and we send them a hamper with around 20 combos and we say happy birthday from Soulful so that you can distribute it to your friends. So we take an opportunity which is a point of sale opportunity and convert it to brand love, because
Right.
finally it's the love of the brand that stays with a consumer. And that's how you are a small brand. And then the journey is depending on what your milestone is, but it's how you capture that little quirk, little place in that consumer's heart, and you make a difference to.
Right. I think that's a amazing example of course, building the systems, because there are lots of nuances that you've gotten into. And in terms of consistency, you have to aim to build that system that lasts for years, right? I was just thinking about this example of Tropicana and how did they, change their packaging, and then that relatability completely, that was gone, and they faced a lot of losses during that stint, and then they came back. So I think the nuances that you mentioned in terms of how planning of a mascot and how the packaging needs to look and all those offline touch points, thinking about those birthday party examples, I think that's a really good example. I think from a CMO perspective, this is what, this is the kind of system that they're building now. Do you follow a mental model for the same, or there is a playbook, or do you keep on revising it, basis a lot of studies, because the customer nuances are also getting, lots of insights are coming up, right? What does the process look like?
So, Rachita, from a brand point of view, one thing that we kept very consistent from the start was the brand proposition and the
Hmm.
brand positioning. That was something we were very sure about. And that's why we started with a differentiated approach, which was millets. It was about delivering products which are affordable and accessible to consumers with a better for you proposition, which came from millets. So to the consumer, it doesn't matter it's millets, but we of course had a larger story behind it, which I will share with you some other day. So that was the idea. So that doesn't change. We
Hmm.
have not deterred from that. So if you look at soulful packaging also, it says Tata Soulful, Delicious Millets. So that is something that we stood by, because like I told you, if you keep changing your proposition, then what do you stand for? And at the end of the day, the one thing that you need to remember is how much ever money you spend, I can either decide to spend that money on each product of mine, or I can decide to spend that money on what Tata Soulful stands for. Now, as a brand, what do you chase? You chase revenue. When you chase revenue, what is the vehicle? Your product. So,
Right.
what do you have to put out there? Is the consumer needs to
Consumers.
understand
Right.
the product. So, you are never left with money. How many ever years I've tried to build brand Tata Soulful. However, if each of the products sing the same song, you are actually organically building brand Tata Soulful, which comes together very well. So that
Right.
we were really clear about. Like I kid with my brand managers, right? I tell them only a brand manager gets fed up of his brand campaign. A, a, a consumer never gets fed up. We make an asset, so we call it working and non-working media. Our non-working media spends are only 15% in a year. Our working media spends are almost 85 to 90% in a year,
Hmm.
because we take the same asset, we make it so well. So the process is very simple.
Hmm.
If you do it well, you go deep, you test it with consumer, you test it through matrix, you test
Right.
it through tools. So when it comes to all of those things, we don't compromise at all.
Right.
We've never ever, stringed on whether it is a brand track which is done by Kantar or the data that we get from Nielsen. Those are all top quality. We will not compromise on that. So that's something that we do. However, where are we extremely agile? We are very, very agile when it comes to marketing tools. We are
Right.
very agile when it comes to consumer feedback.
Hmm.
So I'll give you a simple example, right? Like we had one ad of ours, which was for Ragi Bites, which had the mascot. So the mascot has remained the same. We have always used yellow and brown and red. The colors are the same. So over a period of time, when you see an M&Ms, you know that
Right.
that orange and blue and yellow is M&M.
Yes.
So similarly, if you see yellow, brown, red, you know it is Tata Soulful Ragi Bites in the kids category. So what we did was we had the ad and then we ran a brand track later
Hmm.
where the consumer said, Ragi. So we spoke to three cohorts. One was the users, second were the lapsers, and third was aware not tried. So we went to lapsers, of course, we had to bring them back. Users had lots of good things to say. But we were trying to understand how do you bring more consumers into the franchise. So we went and asked the aware not tried, what is the issue?
Hmm.
And they said that ये समझ में नहीं आता है, रागी है, chocolate है, साथ में कैसे खा सकते हैं? And that's when we realized we never thought about it.
Right.
From that day, whenever we worked on an asset, we changed our end frame. We made sure there was chocolate blast, there was chocolate pouring, because we realized the consumer I'm talking to is a child. He does not care if it is healthy or non-healthy. In fact, the moment you say healthy, he will run in the other direction. But if you
Right.
say tasty, then he really likes it. So that's the ad we put on the kids channel.
Right.
When it comes to the mother, we show them how it's healthy, and then we show that version of the ad on channels where the mother is seeing. So we have a very popular thing at Soulful, right? We call it this product called Ragi Bites, where it's the mother outside and the child inside. So the mother outside is of course our ragi shell, and the child out inside is the cream, chocolate cream that we put inside. So how do you create that? So that same philosophy we apply everywhere, whether it's our muesli, whether it's a kids product, whether it's our masala oats. They come from strong insights which stay standardized, but when it is the treatment, it's all based on consumer insights, and we keep it very agile.
I think easier said than done, because when you're sitting in a boardroom with, with all the members who just want quick results, who want revenue, right? This kind of thinking enables towards more system building because you've done your research. But then at the same time, the board members would want to know about the revenue that's achieved. How do you shift that conversation?
No. So one thing I'll tell you very clearly: if they're sharp board members and they've been there for a while, they will make sure that your spends are going towards brand building
Okay.
and not towards promos. So that is something that I've learned over a period of time.
Okay.
If that board member understands business, and they, of course, they will chase revenues. Again, as a CMO, 20% of my time goes in marketing. 80% of my time goes in category building and revenue.
Right.
Because if there is no revenue, we are not marketing asset creators.
Right.
We are business owners.
Right.
So like my entire team, we're all very clear. Why are we all MBAs? Because we understand the P&L, we hold it well. So while you're creating your products with nuances and insights, etc., we're also very strong owners of our gross margin. And that is something that never shifts. There is a guardrail for a gross margin. You might be agile about looking at cost saving. We are agile about looking at the ingredient panel. We're agile about looking at formulations which will deliver better. Right. But that gross margin is like gospel truth. Like if it is going to drop from the gross margin which doesn't work for the business, we will not touch it. Similarly, taking a 60-70% jump in revenue year on year is gospel truth. Because if you're not growing at that pace, then you're not really a today challenger brand, right?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. So once you tick those boxes and you are hitting your business KPIs and your brand KPIs are sacrosanct, I think board members are good. And like I always say, tailor your conversation to your consumer. Right. At that time, your board member is your consumer and he wants to know how you're growing the business. So you tailor the conversation to talk to them more about how revenues are jumping, how you are increasing distribution, how you have a better GTM. So that's what matters, right? It depends on who you're talking to.
Right. I think when we started this conversation, we just started that, over the years, the role has been evolved and now they are going towards, that system building mindset. Now, if you imagine in the next 10 years, what type of systems every successful CMO should be talking about, which they're not even talking today, like for sure they're not talking today, what would that be?
So I think it's quite simple. I think in another few years, in your parlance, 10 years, I see that CMOs will be focusing more on consumer empathy, partnered well with machine learning. You will have marketing campaigns which will self-optimize itself. They'll have self-optimizing engineering. Right. We will not have to spend our time in optimizing campaigns. That is something which it'll all be self-optimized. And I think thirdly, your results, your KPIs will be value engineered and there'll be a lot more transparency. So you can actually see the outputs. You're not spending time in meeting rooms trying to see outputs and KPIs. Right. You'll have dashboards which are automated, which will keep the absolute transparency to what outputs you're getting. So a lot more time will be spent in building businesses, not with large infrastructures, but with a lot more intelligence and depth.
Great. And great insight indeed. And to everyone listening, especially the young marketers, what one lesson you'd want them to learn, adapt to really early in their stage so that they are not turning into like a short-term campaign managers, rather than they should enable their thinking towards a category leadership or a system building per se?
So like I say this to all my team members, right? Point number one, you guys are business owners, so understand the P&L in depth. Every single product, SKU, price, offer, and understand your competition equally well. So that's point number one. Second thing is live your brand, breathe your brand, meet at least 3 to 4 consumers every month. Because the
Very
insights that
important. Right.
consumers throw at you, I don't think anybody else can. And
True.
third and most important, brands are not built on desktops in office. They are built out in the market. So spend at least 30 to 40% of your time standing in the market, standing with that retailer, standing in your product aisle. The learning that you will get, it will make that the other 60% of the time that you spend in your office a lot more worthwhile. And consumer learning, there's nothing to match that. And that insight is something which only enhances itself over years. There's nothing that will replace that, because consumer sits at the heart of everything.
Right. Great suggestions actually for the brand marketers and even digital marketers like us. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to do like a quick round of fun
Yeah.
questions. You can answer them in just a few words.
Absolutely.
So I'll start. So what's your all-time favorite soulful product and how do you enjoy it yourself?
Ragi bites fills. I have a really bad sweet tooth, and I don't get time in the day for myself, so I like binge watch at night. So that's when I eat ragi, because I know what goes into it.
Okay, great. If you had to describe your leadership style as a flavor, what would it be?
Integrated. So I don't like to work on hierarchy. I like to work with my team as a peer.
Okay. What's one food trend you secretly hope disappears soon?
Matcha.
I agree.
I cannot stand
I
that
think we
thing.
all agree.
It's like green grass.
I'm not sure about a winner, but yeah,
Yeah.
great. Um, Coffee, chai, or ragi malt? What actually fuels your best ideas? I think I know the answer.
It's ginger tea. It's pure ginger
Then you're
masala
on
tea.
our side. Great.
Yeah. Yes.
Great.
Ragi malt is good to be a meal replacement, but definitely not my catalyst for stimulation.
Great to be on the same side, actually. Um, which marketing buzzword do you wish we could retire forever?
ROAS.
Thank God you said
Yeah,
that.
I think it's the most abused word.
Right.
People just keep throwing different
Right.
ways to build it out. I mean, I think if you don't have bottom line efficiency, no amount of ROAS makes sense.
Right. Great. I think this brings us to the end of our session. I think we seriously got a strong masterclass in the role of the CMO and how the CMOs need to build a system rather than you know going towards a campaign thinking mindset. So thank you so much for your time today, and to everyone listening, I'm sure you have got lots of nuggets of information from this session, but we have a lot more. So stay tuned, keep watching. You're watching the Brand Perspective series at Marketing Stack 2025. Thank you. Thank you, Rasika.
Thank you so much. That was indeed it was a fun, quick session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.